The Marlins get off the mark on deadline day. Peter Bendix pulling an absolute stunner. An emergency podcast, probably the first of many today. Trevor Rogers traded to the Baltimore Orioles. The Marlins getting two prospects back in return and two significant names, Norby and Stowers, back from the Orioles. Boy, oh boy, this is a very interesting deal from a Marlins perspective. This feels like a big fat dub for Peter Bendix. Tons to get into on an emergency. Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, at Miami Marlins _UK. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen, guys. There's likely to be multiple episodes today. It is deadline day. The Marlins have a lot of assets, and the first asset has been moved. Reminder, there is a YouTube channel as well, guys. Hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Let me know your comments, thoughts specifically on this deal. Trevor Rogers to the Orioles, plus his 2 years of control and two prospects back in return, Norby and Stowers for the Marlins from the Orioles. Both of these guys have had some big league experience, limited amounts, but nevertheless, both of them containing 5+ years of control, are big league ready, and effectively should be part of the big league roster immediately. This is very interesting, no doubt about it. This episode is sponsored by our good friends over at PrizePicks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Guys, the first deal has dropped. We have been sitting in anticipation all day. I know I have. I've been scrolling, refreshing, you name it. Slow. Now it's going to be fast. Is that the tango? I don't know. Nevertheless, Peter Bendix, we get the rumors from Craig Mish that Trevor Rogers is likely to be moved. Many teams in on him, and which makes sense. Trevor has definitely been solid this year. I think it's fair to say it's not the Trevor Rogers of 21. It never has been. Since the sticky stuff situation changed, Trevor's changed. But he has been reliable this year. There's value in that, and there's 2 years of control. So Trevor Rogers, we get the news, is going to be moved. The question is where and what is the return? Then you get the news breaking that Connor Norby is part of this deal from the Orioles. Everyone getting extremely excited about that alone. Norby alone would have been a win. We then get the news that actually Kyle Stowers is also in this deal. Am I pronouncing the surname correctly? I think so, but nevertheless. You then get another guy back. Norby and Stowers. I don't know. Should have worked that out before. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. Does not matter. It feels like the immediate reaction from Marlins fans is this is a fat dub. A huge dub. And I think we're going to get into Trevor Rogers in a little bit, but for me, this sends a very different signal to the Marlins fan base than what we've seen with other trades. The Luis Arias trade in early May sent all of the wrong signals, I think, to Marlins fans. We're punting the year in early May, firstly. And secondly, we're going to get back guys that are extremely young. The headliner being Dylan Head, young, and then a few other guys that are a little bit further away. The sense was that the Marlins were going into an extremely long rebuild where there's going to be maybe multiple years of doom. But what we've seen already with some of the other deals, plus this deal, all of a sudden, there's some guys here that look like they could be forming part of a young core that could be competing they're going to be in the mix to be playing. Some of them could be playing this year. I think both of these guys from the Orioles could absolutely be dropped straight into the lineup and the roster like immediately. We'll see who else is moved. I think it's interesting that Stowers in particular, more of a, obviously an outfielder. That for me is interesting. A left-handed stick as well. But I do have my suspicions around Brian De La Cruz. I'm going to wait to see if Brian De La Cruz is moved as part of, today's escapades. We'll wait and see. But it wouldn't shock me if he were to be moved. But the Marlins, with both these guys, both on the 40-man, they both had big league experience with the Orioles. And that, again, this creates a different signal to the Marlins fan base. We're all of a sudden looking around going, okay, well, with DDLS, with Agustin Ramirez, with Norby, Stowers, all of a sudden you've got like the basis of a young offensive core here with some power, no doubt, which is very, very enticing. So for me, this is the first deal to be done. I'm recording this immediately after the news drops. So as we go on here, who knows, there may be another deal dropped. We're expecting more. Hold on a minute, Craig Mish. Oh, my days of breaking news while we're on. The Marlins have traded Josh Bell to the Diamondbacks. D-backs pick up Josh Bell. He was on waivers. The Marlins are going to eat the dough. Let's see what comes back. This is dropping immediately while I'm recording. Like I said, the news has gone around Trevor Rogers. We now get the news that Josh Bell has gone. Expiring contract on waivers. The expectation was he'd go, particularly considering he heated up. And the very interesting part is this is where the Marlins have lucked out here with Josh Bell. I mean, this is supposed to be a Trevor Rogers emergency pod, but we'll segue into Josh Bell briefly. This is where they luck out, where the Diamondbacks, they have an injury yesterday. Christian Walker, I think, exits the game. Am I remembering this correctly? The Diamondbacks get an injury the day before the deadline. Next thing is the Marlins now have a trade partner. They're going to eat the dough. They're probably going to get something back. We'll wait to see what that is. But let's go back to the Trevor Rogers deal and just generally the fact that the Marlins are trading Trevor Rogers. Listen, the Marlins and Orioles, for me, have been a perfect trade partner for a number of years. We've been waiting for them to do something here. The Marlins with a surplus of pitching, the Orioles with a surplus of offensive talent. They've had the rebuild of rebuilds, no doubt about it, and they've got too much. But as we saw in that Orioles series just recently with the Marlins, these guys that the Marlins have acquired, particularly Norby, it is, I think, his first ever career home run against the Marlins in that series. But what we did see, the Orioles pitching, starters and bullpen, they need some help. And so it was, you were looking, thinking, is Tanner Scott going to end up with the Orioles? Who knows where Tanner Scott's going to end up? There's still time. Tanner Scott will be moved, but it's going to be to the highest bidder, no doubt about it. And if this is the price for starting pitching, Trevor Rogers, who, let's be honest this year, he's got a 1.4 WAR, and I'm looking at, he's got a 2-9 record. No run support all year long for Trevor Rogers, but a 4.53 ERA, but a whip of 1.528, 105 innings, 85 Ks. Listen, I've watched a lot of Trevor Rogers for the last couple of seasons, and unfortunately with Trevor Rogers, it just is pretty underwhelming generally. Like, it's 5 or so innings of okay, but that's kind of all you get. So for the Marlins to turn a relatively verging on replacement level starter here that's already in arbitration into 2 prospects that are big league ready that look like they can impact the Marlins immediately, man, oh man, this feels like a huge, huge win for the Marlins. Let's segue over now and talk about our good friends over at Supply House. And then we'll carry on the conversation here, talking about this deal that's just dropped. Trevor Rogers to the Orioles, 2 prospects back in Norby and Stowers from the Orioles. Feels like a fat win. Carry on the conversation. But before we do that, let's let you know about our good friends over at Supply House. And you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trade, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts for over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. You need help with an order? No problem. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Welcome back to the Emergency Podcast, the first probably of many, and this is segued from a Trevor Rogers emergency to a Trevor Rogers and Josh Bell emergency podcast. The Marlins are going to be extremely active today. Josh Bell moved to the Diamondbacks. We'll wait to see what that package will be. The Marlins likely to eat most of the money, if not all of it, and if they can get anything back, they will be happy. You never know. The Diamondbacks may have a need and want to secure Bell on waivers. I don't think so. I think the Marlins end up retaining the dough. But we will see where we're at on this one real soon. But what is already, Christian Walker left. I'm just checking out here. Walker left last game with oblique tightness. Those obliques, problematic. Again, the Marlins and Peter Bendix on the busiest deadline day maybe they'll ever have. Maybe. They get lucky. They get lucky the day before with Walker exiting, oblique. Josh Bell, who are you going to call Josh Bell? And why not? Josh Bell's going to be a great fit for anyone. He's on fire. We'll see him, what he can do with the Diamondbacks clearly. But, we don't know the return on that one. We'll wait and see. But overall for Trevor Rogers, let's just briefly talk about him. Let's go back to 2021, an all-star campaign for Rogers, a 2.64 ERA, 133 innings of work, an ERA plus of 160 and a 2.55 FIP. He was absolutely stunning in that campaign. He was an all-star, and he was second in the Rookie of the Year awards. Trevor Rogers at that point, to me, looked like a legit top-of-the-rotation stud. No doubt about it. He then comes back in 2022, and unfortunately, it was significant regression from him at that point. A 4.35 FIP for him, a 1.5 WHIP. The strikeouts, 106 from 107 innings, where if you go back to his rookie campaign, the Rookie of the Year campaign anyway, 133 innings and 157 Ks. The K per 9 was looking real nice back then. What we've seen with Trevor subsequently, this year, it's been functional. That's what I'm going to describe it as. It's been functional, but it just isn't the sexy stuff that we saw in 21. He's never been the same guy, really. Once the restrictions came in around the sticky stuff, it's never been the same Trevor Rogers. I think the Marlins are absolutely right to move on from Trevor Rogers at this point. It would have been very interesting to have seen if, Luzardo was healthy at this point. Like, what could Luzardo have returned here for the Marlins in this market? Or maybe this may be the lucky thing where you end up moving Trevor Rogers. Like, if this would have been Jesus Luzardo, let me just put this to you. If Luzardo brought back this package, would you have seen that as a fair deal? Would you have even seen that as a win for the Marlins? I'm very interested. Let me know. As you know, I'm not a main prospect guy. But the way this one's being received is this is a fat dub. Huge dub. If it was Luzardo instead of Rogers, would you have still seen it as a dub? If so, then maybe the Marlins, again, Peter Bendix has lucked out. Luzardo's hurt. We can't move him. The Orioles need an arm. They've got so many prospects, so many offensive guys. They're a great fit. They then default back down to Trevor Rogers. Next thing is you look around and go, hold on a minute. We've done what we need to do for this roster now for next year. And we've still got Jesus Luzardo and Sandy Alcantara and Brian Weathers and Max Meyer and, whoever else it may be, pitching for the Marlins. So again, have the Marlins and Peter Bendix lucked out here in this situation? I think it's possible they have. I must say, with these types of deals being made and the market the Marlins are operating in at this point, there's still like tons of relievers to go. We're going to wait and see exactly how things go. And Craig Mish talking about, there's so much happening here. Craig Mish with the update. Tanner Scott expected to be moved before 6 p.m. And at this point, it looks like they are looking at potential deals for outfielder Brian De La Cruz. Hold on to whatever you got, folks. Man, oh man, I did think it. I could see that Brian De La Cruz could be moved. Again, he's moving towards arbitration. The Marlins are looking to get younger, maybe, looking to keep that cost down. I feel like Brian De La Cruz, whilst a decent stick, the reality is with De La Cruz, the defense isn't amazing. The base running isn't amazing. It's relatively limited in the grand scheme. But I think there's value there. I absolutely think there's value. He gets hits, he gets home runs. There's absolutely value with De La Cruz for someone, no doubt. I think there's a really good fit with the Royals on him specifically. We'll talk about it. We're going to do another show later on for certain. Sean, UK GOAT Barrett, is joining the show. We're going to be pretty much hitting record from 10:30 p.m. my time, so half an hour before the deadline. We'll pretty much hit record. It'll probably be an hour-long episode, just digging into absolutely everything, guys. But let's look at the return here from the Marlins' perspective, with firstly Connor, Norby, and you look at his production this season in 2024. He's been operating at AAA. He's got a 908 OPS at AAA. That is including 16 home runs, 57 RBIs, 13 stolen bags, 47 walks to 104 Ks. He has been, and you go back to 2023, also a AAA. So he's been parked in AAA for a couple of years. Very, very similar numbers. He looks very consistent in and around 850 to 900 OPS. This guy looks like a legit hitter, can hit for average, can hit for power, can steal a few bags, plays middle infield, it seems. And so for the Marlins, this is a very intriguing profile. The question I've got here straight away is with Norby, is he the shortstop of the future? The second baseman of the future. Otto Lopez obviously came in. We've seen Otto Lopez, what's happened. He came on fire. He started on fire and then has tailed away the stick. The defense is unquestionable. Looks like a really useful bench stick defensive replacement, Otto Lopez. But the Marlins really need to find some offense at second base if indeed they're really comfortable with Xavier Edwards at short. And frankly, with Xavier Edwards, everything we've seen thus far at short, even though I questioned it, everyone questioned it. Is he a shortstop? I don't think so. Nevertheless, he's proved everyone wrong and looks to be a legit shortstop at this point with an above average stick. So that solves a problem. That solves a problem at short. Second base, is Norby going to be that guy? I'm very interested to see how the Marlins manage it. We then get Stowers added to the mix, an outfield guy. Again, he's big league ready. And, again, it's interesting to see how he's going to be managed. We look at his minor league career. He's a little bit older. He's 26, so a little bit older. But in the major leagues this year, he's hitting 306 in 37 plate appearances. At AAA, where he spent the majority of the season, 264 plate appearances, 18 home runs. He's got an 877 OPS. Doesn't take a ton of walks. A few 26 though, I suppose, so not too bad. But spent a little bit of time at the big league level in 2023 as well. That was pretty unsuccessful. Hit 067 in 33 plate appearances. So not amazing. Going back to 2023 though, at the minor league level, across 3 different teams, had a 954 OPS. That was at age 25, including 21 home runs. So listen, this guy, the season prior to that as well, 724 OPS. Actually, that was at the big league level. Man, oh man, now he's had 3 stints at the big league level. A AAA that year, an 884 OPS. So let me just recap that again. In 2022, an 884 OPS at AAA. In 2023, at the AAA level, an 875 OPS. At 2024 at AAA, an 877 OPS. This guy, doesn't really hit so much for average, but there's some power there in this stick. It's a really interesting profile. The slug is there, no doubt about it. Left-handed stick, can play across the outfield, it seems. Looks to be spending the majority of his defensive time seemingly at right field. Still a chunk at center as well. So center and right field. So very interesting profile here defensively. So, listen, this is a real quick snapshot. You pretty much hit record here. Trevor Rogers to the Orioles. I think it's an interesting fit. I think it feels like, based on what we're looking at here and the reaction of Marlins Twitter, this is a fat dub for the Marlins. They managed to move Trevor, who is at this point, in my opinion, pretty vanilla, but does have 2 years of control, is a good guy. Don't get me wrong on that. love Trevor, loved his 21, fell in love with him in 21, but we've just never seen that again. We've seen injuries, we've seen lack of confidence, and frankly, the swing and miss just isn't there anymore with Trevor Rogers. This feels like a huge price that the Orioles have paid. Final ads, and then we'll get out of here. Let you know about our good friends over at PrizePicks. Yes, sir. And if the producer can get the graphics up. Thank you, producer. And PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, baby. You can turn up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn 10 into 1,000. Also, if you're looking for promos, this is for you. PrizePicks has got you covered every single week, especially on Tuesdays, where they lower select player stat projections to help your lineup hit, and you get your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's Locked On MLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, guys, final segment here, and pretty much just a brief goodbye because I'm going to be back later on. I just wanted to hop on, hit this pod ASAP, but it sounds like there is tons going on here. A little bit more information on the Josh Bell situation. They're going to receive cash considerations for Bell. Arizona will cover a portion of his remaining salary. So I guess it feels like they're just giving him away and covering a little bit of the money. Sounds like there's a bit of, not really anything coming back in return, just a bit of money coming back. So interesting there. Tanner Scott, the big headline name. That is going to be extremely, extremely interesting to see. How what they managed to return for Tanner Scott. De La Cruz seems to be in play. Tons of relievers are in play. Absolutely wild deadline here, guys. There's going to be at least one more episode, maybe 2, maybe 3 episodes in the next couple of days. But the headline deal here, the emergency pod, Trevor Rogers to the Orioles, feels like a fat overpay from the Orioles. The Marlins getting 2 prospects back that are big league ready. To me, Norby looks like he could be the second baseman of the present and the future for the Marlins. Stowers as well looks to me like he could either plug straight into center field. Reminder, Jazz Chisholm Jr. traded. Is Stowers going to plug into center field? Left-handed stick. To me, big league ready with some power. Let's plug him in and let's see. The Marlins have accelerated their timeline today, moving Rogers, but getting 2 guys back that can basically plug and play right now. They're straight in the mix. The question then is what about the other guys they've already acquired? What is their timeline looking like? When we get to 25, are we going to see them as well? DDLS, Augustin Ramirez. Equally, what else are they going to get back in the next 3.5 hours? There's so much going on here. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. Going to be back in the next few hours and look forward to seeing you then.